Hello, everybody. Welcome. This year, more than ever with COVID-19, we need to connect and support each other. Hence, our inviting everybody to benefit from this year's International Coaching Week, CPD and Business Building Experience. I'm your host, Dawn Campbell, Sales and Marketing Director at the International Authority for Professional Coaching and Mentoring, or as we like to call it, the IAPC&M. I'm delighted to welcome with me Nikki Wild, Head of Education, fellow coach and colleague, and also Jerri Udelson, who I'm going to do a formal introduction for in a minute. But just hello, everybody. Thank you for joining. So Jerri is well known to the IAPC&M since she has supported our efforts for a long time and is a regular speaker at our events. And we were just sort of backtracking as to which of us interviewed Jerri first. And Nikki interviewed Jerri in 2016, and I interviewed Jerri last year. Jerri is described as a coaching pioneer and visionary, and it's a well-deserved label since she's the founder of ICW, now in its 22nd year.
22nd year, right?
22nd, yeah, how time flies, eh? An event that is celebrated in our industry across the world. And as well as coaching, Jerri is a realtor and author, and she recently co-authored a couple of lovely books. Now, they're aimed at realtors, but actually they're very, very relevant to us in the coaching world. Her coaching company, Entrepreneurial Coaching and Consultancy, focuses on helping entrepreneurs, self-employed people, real estaters, grow their business quickly and strategically so that they can have the life that they love outside of work. And as I said, my fellow colleague and mentor, Nikki Wild, is our head of education. So we thought it'd be a great idea if we got Jerri back and talk to her about what the industry is like during lockdown. You could never have imagined this 22 years ago, Jerri, that we would all be taking our businesses online. So this is more of a roundtable discussion rather than a presentation. Nikki and I were talking a couple of weeks on our Connect and Coffee mornings about how it's a myth that there's no coaching business, how it's a myth that clients have no money to spend on coaching. And I know Nikki's got a couple of questions herself. So it's just a roundtable discussion. Sit back, enjoy it, and post your questions in the chat box, and we'll answer as many of them as we can for you. So over to you, please, Nikki.
Hi, yeah, lovely to see everybody here today, and thank you, Jerri. It's great to see you again. I know it seems like an awfully long time since we first connected, so I know it's been a while. And I know from our first conversations that the purpose that you had in mind when you first launched National Coaching Week, as it was in that first year, was about raising the profile of professional coaching so that the audience that understands the purpose of what coaching is, so just raising that profile of professional coaching. And also you talked about giving something back to be able to celebrate the results and the benefits that people get through coaching. And it occurred to me that in the current times, that particularly that half about giving something back is probably more relevant, or as relevant at least now as it was 22 years ago. So I just wondered maybe if you wanted to perhaps remind some of the participants today, some of your thinking about how that original philosophy still applies in the times we're in today.
That's a great question. Thanks, Nikki. When I created coaching, it was called National Personal and Business Coaching Week in 1999. And I created it to raise the profile of coaching and also to provide a platform for coaches and their clients to really celebrate the results and the benefits of coaching. So it was a way to really expand the whole idea of coaching in the US. And then the next year, Canadian coaches were like, well, I want to be involved, so let's change the name. So then I changed the name to International Coaching Week, and then it just really took off on its own. And I think that pro bono coaching and giving back it's just so important, because we have a profession that can really help people in both their business and their personal lives. And that's in a way that's really unique, because we're trained to listen, to be empathic, to have compassion, and to really ask deep probing questions to help people figure out what their next steps are, how to move forward in their lives, etc. So I think that with this giant pause reset that we're on now, it's really a great opportunity for all of us to think about where we want to go, where we want to be, how we want our lives to look in the next X number of years. And so I'm so heartened that so many organizations are doing pro bono coaching. And I know that the International Coaching Federation, which is a US-based organization, has a coaching day on Wednesday where they're encouraging coaches to do an hour of pro bono coaching. So it's kind of cool that all coaches are doing pro bono work on the same day. I personally always do complimentary coaching sessions during coaching week because I feel it's important to support the clients out there who don't even know about coaching and could use a half an hour, 40 minutes of laser coaching. I just think it's important for us to give back. So that's a long answer to your question.
I think you're absolutely right. And I think the balance, isn't there, between coaches who are making a living and the whole positioning of us as professionals, not just a friend that we would go for coffee with, and obviously when we can all go out for coffees. It's different. Having a professional coach is different from just having a friend to talk things through with. So there's that balance between keeping that professional presentation alongside being able to give something back. And I think for the coaches who want to be able to offer something extra, who would normally be charging their clients, Coaching Week, International Coaching Week gives a great reason to offer some sessions. The phrase that I tend to use, I never give free coaching, but what I do is say, I'll cover the cost of the session this time, or let's meet and I'll cover the cost, that all you have to do is come and enjoy the coaching. And so we're still recognizing the value at the same time as we are allowing somebody to have access to something that they might not ordinarily have. I know Dawn and I were talking about not wanting to stoke fears or even false beliefs that clients are currently not paying for coaching. I know I have paying clients. I still have paying clients. I know a lot of my mentees have paying clients. At the same time, I also recognize that there are a lot of people who would benefit from coaching right now, whose financial situation has become very different in the last few weeks. So I was just wondering, thinking about that philosophy of professional coaching and pro bono, if you were advising a coach who's going, how do I do both? How do I still make a living as a coach and serve the people who can't afford to pay for coaching right now? I'm just wondering what you would say to those coaches.
I think people should do both at the same time. I don't know too many coaches that have a full practice where they're coaching 40 hours a week. I think for a lot of coaches, a full practice is 20. That would be great. So I think we do have time. We're not commuting. We're not running out to lunch, getting our hair done and all that. So I think we have time. And it's great. I have clients who can afford to continue to pay me. And I have clients who are on the fence about whether they want to continue or not. And I think it's really important to support people. At least as a business coach, I want to help my clients think about what are the next steps in their lives going forward once we get out of quarantine. How are they going to keep their businesses going? And I think a lot of the coaches that are really not trained professional coaches, but are, say, sales trainers, at least in the real estate industry, seem to be fairly tone deaf about what's going on and encouraging their real estate agents to get out there and push for more deals and more sales and more listings. And I think that's really tone deaf. People, at least at the beginning, are terrified of losing their jobs or getting sick and being quarantined with their kids, and how are they going to keep their kids homeschooled, etc. So I think that we have to be really sensitive to what's going on. And I've been thinking about this, preparing for the talk, and I think in the next month, things will have changed and we'll be thinking about what's the new normal and how we're going to go forward. So I talk to my clients about preparing their businesses to do business in a new way, perhaps, and not just call up people and try to push them to sign up for more sessions or more business or whatever. I just think that's insensitive.
I think that's a really nice way of putting it, and yeah, I would agree with that sensitivity. I had a lovely example week before last. Somebody who was in a situation where she wasn't able to pay for the coaching at the time. And this is about 4 years plus ago. And at the time she said, I will pay you when I can afford to. And I said, that's absolutely fine. In my head, I was gifting her the coaching. And if she was ever going to pay anything towards it in the future, then that would be a nice to have, but I didn't expect it. And so I coached her, and she's done fantastically well in various things. And out completely unexpectedly, a couple of weeks ago, I just got a message from her saying, I want to pay for that coaching that I had. And so she sent me some funds to cover that session that we'd had 4 years ago, and I wasn't expecting it, and it was a lovely surprise, and she felt good that she was in a position now to be able to do that. So I think sometimes as coaches, just gifting our services to somebody in their moment of need, you never know when that's going to come back later on. That person has introduced me, she's made referrals, and yeah, as I say, she even paid me some money a few years later on. So I think that spirit of generosity comes back and rewards us. What value do you see coaching? I'm just curious, Jay, from your point of view, what value do you see coaching adding to people at the moment? You mentioned about that sort of getting some clarity around what next. So when we all do come eventually out of quarantine and lockdown, however that works in our different territories. I know different governments are taking different approaches to how they release people and how we start working or interacting again. As well as that sort of what next sort of clarity, I'm just wondering what value you see coaching in particular adding to people at the moment.
Well, one thing I've been doing is giving talks about thriving in the new reality, and I have a note here about what my topic was. Thriving in this new reality, or how to keep calm and carry on. You like that part, a coaching perspective. And I think what I try to do in my talks is normalize these feelings of anxiety and distress and uncertainty, that this is common, and that one needs to deal with the current reality of what's going on, that you just can't deny how you're feeling and just go start working on your business plan or whatever moving forward. So I think I tell people this pandemic will end. We just don't know when. And I've gotten feedback that was extremely reassuring. I also offer resources like meditation classes. There's a fabulous class I like to promote on Coursera by a Yale professor called The Science of Well-Being, which used to be called The Science of Happiness. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it was the most widely attended college course ever. And the professor talks about the importance of giving back, of generosity, of connection, and that's really important. So I try to give resources, also tapping, which is a way to reduce stress, and then other techniques to make you feel better. And I also started a Facebook group called Pandemic Dining, where people share not recipes, but just pictures of what they're cooking. And it's sort of a way to develop community and make something special that's drudgery after you're making your 25th meal that week. You're like, well, let's do something. So with clients, I think it's important to normalize their feelings and say that it's really okay. We're all feeling this way. And like, what can you do about it? Do you want to go for let's talk about self-care. Go can't scream in the car so much, but do the silent scream in the bathroom, where you just open your mouth and nothing comes out, but you release a lot of stress. Do yoga classes, go pound in the garden, whatever it is to reduce stress. And then let's talk about whatever else you want to talk about.
Great. The things that we're doing differently at the moment, obviously with the restrictions on interacting with face to face, and the various lockdowns around the world, and we're all finding ways to continue to work with clients remotely, social distancing when we're with them, but also online. And I know a lot of coaches I've been talking to recently who had previously believed that they couldn't coach effectively online or on the telephone, are now discovering that actually it's an incredibly effective tool. Interestingly, I was having a conversation that I always encourage my coach mentees, particularly the ones new to coaching, to have at least 1 or 2 sessions with a client where they're just on the telephone. The only sense you've got to engage with is your hearing, because boy, do you learn to listen well when that's the only way to communicate. So I'm just thinking that the things that coaches are doing at the moment of finding ways to engage using online platforms and different ways of delivering the coaching services. How much of this do you think is going to stay, and this will be our sort of standard way of operating? How much do you think we're going to we're going to either step back into face-to-face versus online versus private sessions? I'm just curious from your perspective what you think which changes do you think we're going to stick with?
I think we're going to stick with virtual coaching, because I think it's more intimate in a way than I can't really explain, but it's very intimate, and you're really focused on listening to the person, and you're not distracted by what else is going on. And I used to think, well, I couldn't coach virtually because I like to look at the body language and the expression on the person's face and all that, but I coach on the phone and not by Zoom or Skype or anything, and I find it very effective. It's also very efficient for my clients who are running around all the time, and sometimes they're coaching me from the hair salon or from the car wash, or they're waiting for an appointment or something. That's not the ideal situation, but it depends on your clientele. They can't always go into a conference room and just sit quietly and talk to you. So I think virtual coaching is going to be around for a long time, and I think that for people who are in offices, I think the major change is that people are going to be working at home, where they're going to understand the benefits of not having to have a long commute, and just how much more pleasant it is to work in it if you have a great home environment like I do. I mean, if you live in a little apartment and you have young children running around, you're not going to want to be in an office. So it's also fun to coach people or to be giving a teleclass and have the real estate manager's kids running in and climbing all over him when he's trying to, moderate the call. It adds a touch of humanity to the situation.
Or pets. Yeah. I normally have my little dog Mitzi jump on my lap round about now. I agree, Nikki. This is the future. I can't see that people are going to go back for quite a long time to their offices, even if they've created a lovely space in their home for clients to come. I think there's going to be a lot of resistance for clients coming into your place of work. And once they've had a taste of a virtual session where there's minimal distraction, very few logistics, as long as you've got the internet, it's fine. And the benefit, as you say, from the coach's point of view, is that they're really listening intuitively. They haven't got the distractions of the body language, because you normally only just see the head and shoulders. And it means that if they choose to, they can keep their prices even more competitive, because there's no travel on either side. So I think there are a lot of benefits. And you, Jerri, being in the real estate business, you're going to see some really big changes, because, as you say, companies who have managed for the last couple of months with home working their employees, and we've heard how some of them are experiencing increased productivity. Why would you then go back to a massive overhead of a rental in a premium location to have maybe 1,000 employees when you only need 100 of them? So maybe this real estate could be better used for quality housing, and people could work at home. There's less congestion. It could do away with the rush hours, therefore it minimizes pollution. I think this is a wonderful opportunity to rethink how we do business.
Yeah, but I also think that there's I think it's called the Zoom effect or something. I think people are getting really tired of meeting after meeting after meeting online. You know, I think it's great to do this, but I don't think it'll ever take the place of, say, going out to lunch with your colleague and discussing what's going on. I think that we need, for me, it's a balance.
Yeah, you know, having been in recruitment a long time ago, I do remember that the salary is a given. Actually, what people go to work for is the sociability. And that's what they're really missing. And when we talk about a great need for sensitivity, as you were at the start of the call, for a lot of virtual coaches who it's same old, they perhaps, I can see from some of the comments on social media, are not being as sensitive as they could to what people are experiencing, because there's loss of a loved one, which we've probably all been through. There's loss of freedom, there's loss of income, there's loss of status. There's lots of different type of losses that our clients are going through right now that we need to be sensitive. And they can have the 7 cycles of grief of any of those types of losses. So I guess really the point I'm making is that when you're properly trained, insured and professionally accredited, you're the kind of coach that is more likely to be able to help a client in that situation. Because it's okay having the cookie cutter 50 best questions to ask, but if you don't know how to deal with what comes out and back at you, you could do more damage than good, couldn't you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think coach training is essential, and accreditation. And I get so annoyed with all these people calling themselves coaches. Although sports coaches were here before professional coaches, but people who call themselves, you know, dog training coaches or cooking coaches or all that, they're really either sales trainers or they're teachers, which is great. But coaching is different, and we have certain competencies and skills that we've learned, and we're not necessarily giving advice and training as much as we are asking great questions and having clients come up with answers on their own.
And this is why this weekly celebration that focuses on the professionalism of coaching is so crucial, isn't it?
Well, I guess.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, no.
And now I think we've seen an increase, as Nikki said, on one of the Connect and Coffee morning calls that we've been doing for about 2 months now, is some coaches are significantly seeing an increase in their business.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think doing pro bono work is really important, and certainly doing it for, I moved here and tried to do it for the head of one of the food banks and didn't get anywhere in terms of her responding back to me. But I think coaching pro bono for nonprofits is really important, but giving what I call complimentary or short sessions to people gives them a taste of coaching. And then when we all get out of lockdown and people are rocking and rolling again, or people are thinking about what they're going to do next, they'll hire coaches. We're a great investment.
Sandra is asking,
is 30
minutes a good time frame for a pro bono coaching? And how many pro bono coaching sessions would you recommend as a maximum that somebody has before, if they're in a position to pay for it, that they can? Thoughts, ladies?
Yeah, so I was just looking at that question. It comes down to the practicalities, and to some degree my answer is it depends. It really does, it depends. You can offer pro bono as short or as long as works for you in your audience. For example, I'm a charity trustee. I've been running a group workshop every month for 9 years, once a month every 9 years for that particular organization. It's my gifting back, because my business model has always been a proportion of my work is gifted through my charity work. So that's a full day, a morning every month. So that's obviously a lot more than just a few minutes taster. There are other clients where I might say, in the current times, I'll cover as I said before, I'll cover the cost of the first couple of sessions. So maybe we'll meet for a couple of short sessions, and if and when they're in a position to continue, then we can talk about that when the time's right. If it's more of a structured marketing strategy, I know some coaches put it in place regardless of the time of year and the context we're in. put in a method where they say 30-minute taster call or 30-minute exploratory sessions, or however they want to phrase it. So a lot of coaches do that as a matter of routine and just have 30-minute tasters. If I'm doing that sort of session, then it's a one-off, and it's more of a fact-finding mission than a pure coaching session, because it's part of the marketing and sales strategy. So I think it depends on what's the purpose for it, what's the context. Is it part of your sales and marketing plan, or is it that you want to give something back to the community, in which case which community do you want to give that gift to? Jerri, what are your thoughts on the specifically the question of how many and for how long?
Well, I do a half an hour to 40 minutes or more for whatever we want to call it, a complimentary session, and then sometimes I'll do a follow-up, and we get into the issue, because the point is to support you during this time of uncertainty, and what is your biggest issue or your biggest need. So I like to get into things as opposed to just ask, background information or whatever, because people, that's what people need. And then I may have a let's talk again in a month or whatever. And then by the second time, I'd say, let's discuss the plan. Do you want to continue with this or whatever? But then I also have pro bono coaching, where some clients are holding a nonprofit auction, and they'll do a silent auction, and they'll auction off 3 months of my coaching services pro bono, and people will pay the charity for that. I'm happy to do that. I mean, I just like to be generous. I mean, I think that if you're counting the minutes you're spending and you're figuring out what they owe you, life's too short. I just think you're not setting a good message if you're worrying about the money and are you running over and all that. But that's just my opinion. People can run their businesses, however they like.
I think it's a good balance. It's a good balance between what you'd call introductory taster sessions, pro bono, complimentary, call it what you will, but time is money, so somebody is paying for it. So I like Nikki's phrase, I will cover the cost of this coaching. And if in the future you can afford it, then you can pay me based on the results that you got or whatever. And then because it's vocational and you're passionate about a particular charity, or it fits with your business, that you do some pro bono basis on a regular pay basis for a particular charity. I think there's room for both, definitely.
Yeah.
But I definitely also agree, Nikki, that, as we said in our first coffee and chat morning when we were talking about it, saying I do free coaching and free taster sessions, in a way it almost devalues, because we're raising the professionalism of the industry. So what other industry, whether it's dentists, driving instructors, lawyers, accountants, who gives it away for free? I don't think any of them do. So why should coaching be any different? So I think it's how you use the language and the relationship that you build with that customer. If it's a transactional customer, they're probably going to have a free taster session with everybody and anybody and try and work out their solutions. But if it's somebody who's into relationships, you can tell that it's a relational client and that you can work with them. And it kind of, the conversation organically says, okay, so when would you like to actually get us really started? And where can I send you my contract? And, and start to discuss money. So there is that expectation that it's a win-win-win.
And I like the analogy for the taster session. If you imagine you're going to the supermarket and they want to push a particular item that they're selling in the supermarket, quite often they'll have somebody stood near the entrance with a tray of tasters. So say they want to sell a particular cake. As you go in, someone might say, do you want a little bite-sized piece of this cake, or piece of cheese if they've got a particular cheese they want to sell? So you go in and you say, would you like a piece of cheese? And they give you a piece of cheese on a stick, and you think, oh yeah, that's nice, or you don't like it. But they know that if they give away enough pieces of cheese, some of the people who've tasted that piece of cheese will go and buy that particular cheese off the shelf that's on promotion that week. So there is a little element of that your taster is giving them enough taste. So I like what Jerri said about getting into their issue, because you need to give them enough of a taste that they go, actually, yes, this is what I need. At the same time, recognizing that if you're standing there giving free tasters to everybody who passes the front of your shop window, then getting the balance right, that you need to make enough sales of cheese to be worthwhile giving away all those little tasters. So there is a balance to work out what works for you, for your particular audience or your particular group of clients. And it also comes down to things like, for each of us, we'll have different types of coaching relationship. Are we the sorts of people who tend to work with people on a fairly short term, maybe a project, as a particular thing that they've got going on that they want some help with? Or are we building relationships over a period of time where clients are with us for years rather than weeks and months, in which case you might be prepared to give more of that pro bono work up front and more complementary time up front, because you know that if they're going to be with you for a year, then spending a month getting to know them is actually a really good investment. Whereas if you only work with them for 2 months and that's it, then you might not want to spend a month giving them your input, knowing that they're actually then only going to work with you for another month. So I think there's a balance point for everybody.
And that's where the when question comes in beautifully. When would you actually like to formalize our relationship and get started on creating your plan, or whatever it is? Again, it's about the language that we use, isn't it? Helps measure expectations.
We've got questions coming through the Q&A as opposed to the chat from Ellis, who is in Northern Ireland, in Belfast, as a counsellor, required to have specific training in respect of online counselling. Now, I know counselling is different from coaching, in that counselling has to have observed and maintain certain elements as well. So Ellis is looking to transition to coaching going forward alongside her counselling. So she's interested to know about requirements. So I think from a point of view of CPD online, carrying on with, so let me just read it, get the wording right. So some adjustment to switch to online counselling with existing clients. I'm wondering if this is required before going into online coaching by various coaching associations. So coaching and counselling are different in the way that the professions are monitored and regulated. So CPD and requirements and regulation is much more self-monitoring, I suppose. So you will need to decide how much training and mentoring you require to be able to effectively serve your clients, and you'll record that in your coaching log. I wonder if now that might be a good prompt to mention something along the lines of CPD and because I know we've got other sessions that we'll talk about CPD, so I just wonder if you want to just quickly address Ellis's question on CPD.
Ellis,
and
the other thing that I would add is that in order for anybody to become accredited, so join a coaching association, that's the IAPC&M, we ask for 60 practical coaching hours. Now, when you're a student, we don't dictate whether that is with paid clients or whether it's study buddies. That's just an entry level. You've got 60 practical coaching hours. And because we're an inclusive organization, you actually have a coaching assessment call of 30 minutes. We're in a position to actually assess your coaching skills and whether you're ready to be accredited. So I hope that helps. But we've got quite a few CPD based monthly webinars that I'm sure you'll benefit from listening to. So you said just in relation to working online, well, whether you're working virtually online or whether it's in person, it doesn't make any difference. It's 60 coach training hours and 60 practical coaching hours, regardless of how you're actually going to conduct that coaching.
And I should say, if we've got enough demand, if there are coaches who haven't yet made transitioned or really got to grips with. So today, you know, we're using the Zoom platform. There are other platforms available. If we've got a number of the coaches who want some assistance with that, then it may be that we put on a specific Zoom training session. I ran one probably a couple of years ago now for the IAPC&M members. So we can put that together if somebody decides they actually want some specific training on that. That might be helpful. And thinking, going back to our point for today's conversation about coaching through COVID-19's restrictions and beyond, if this becomes our sort of core way of engaging with our clients, then being comfortable with the technology is going to be something that's a new skill we're going to have to add into the mix. We're going to be great listeners, great questioners, great coaches. We're also going to have to be great technicians in the whatever platforms we use. Jerri, have you come across people struggling with the technology over the last few weeks as we've all had to adapt and change, or do you find people are getting to grips with it fairly quickly?
I think people are getting really comfortable with the Zoom this kinds of platforms. Although I have to admit, I was trying to organize a Google Hangout because I have that technology, and it was really complicated. So I've put off the call. It was a sort of a voluntary Zoom. I think there's a divide between older clientele and younger clientele, at least in the industries that I work in. And some of the older clientele, they're not comfortable with even computers and with posting on Facebook and Instagram, which for a lot of people is really a great way to build their businesses in 2020 and beyond. And so I recommend other resources that people can go to get some training to get good on that, because some people have just a terrible fear of all kinds of technology, like posting a picture from your iPhone to your business Facebook page. And I think that's really important, maybe not so much for us coaches, but certainly for some of our clientele.
I think that's a really good point. And it links back to your point about being sensitive to what's going on for them, is not assume that it's going to be really easy for everybody. Even simple things like the interface, if you're engaging on a laptop or a computer versus if you're engaging on a phone or a tablet, the operational interface is different. So explain to people how to access it, how to use the tools. I try to make it as easy as possible and spell it out in really clear words. I've been doing this with my local church. We're using Zoom for Sundays and for group meetings during the week, and we've now got people in their 80s who are just signing in as a matter of routine, because we've made the explanation really simple and clear, and so it just do this, and it's okay if it doesn't work, and just make it okay for people to find it a struggle and have a bit of patience. I think we need to be patient, but I think it's making sure that it's accessible. Whatever platform we use is accessible to our audience, not try and force them into something that's going to be more of a hindrance or more of a hurdle or a barrier. But I think at the moment we've got a great excuse or a great sort of context we're operating in, because at the moment I'm finding people are very forgiving. So if the technology is not perfect, or this sounds a bit off, or dogs walk through the screen, or whatever it happens to be, at the moment I'm finding people are perhaps a lot more tolerant of those sorts of things than maybe 2 or 3 months ago, where everybody wanted everything perfect and people were scared to show up on screen because of how they looked and all that kind of thing. At the moment it seems quite relaxed. I don't know how long that's going to last, whether a few months time we'll go back to people wanting things to be more polished, or whether this new relaxed way of working is going to carry on. I don't know what you think.
But I do think people need a tech support person, and I have a great tech support person in Santa Fe, and he can get into my computer remotely. And I think that if you're skittish about the technology, or you're having problems with the software, that it's always good to be able to have someone on call that can get into your computer while you're sitting there, and then set it up for you, make it easier, especially if you have a phobia about it. But it's not my job personally to be training people on technology, because I'm not an expert. I try to only stick to my lane. Just put it there.
Yeah, me too. I think the key thing there is, Nikki, is have a look at the platforms that are out there and see which is the easiest that you like usually the one that's most popular is the one that's mostly user friendly, like Skype, like Zoom, like WhatsApp, GoToMeeting. Pick one, practice it on your family and friends, set up a couple of dummy rooms. I mean, that's been one of the feedbacks that we've had from our Connect and Coffee chat over coffee mornings, is that actually, hello, this doesn't look that difficult. I'm sure I can do this on my Facebook group. And it's a way of connecting with lots of people instead of laboriously one after each other as you do in a coaching session. So it's a way of offering support, and this is just giving people the confidence that actually it's very doable and it's not that scary. And as you say, Nikki, people are quite forgiving, and hopefully they will always be quite forgiving. You know, if technology doesn't work, like the video wasn't working but you could hear me, or sometimes it's vice versa. It's just a new way of working that we're all adapting to, and I think it's only going to come more and more, with more options to us to choose from, as people resist going back into, you know, the outside workplace.
Well, I have a question, which is what are the biggest issues that the coaches on this call are facing now? Is it keeping your business going, or what are the biggest issues that your clients are facing? I'd really be curious to get a bigger perspective.
Yeah. Well, let's put some questions.
If we use the chat box, and just share observations, questions, see where everybody's at the moment, that'd be great.
I mean, the two
I know some people are watching us live on Facebook
come up for us, Nikki, in our weekly calls are things like clients who perhaps couldn't afford the fees, and we've covered that. One was and this was quite a popular one, was creating a routine. You know, do I have to get out of my PJs? And somehow getting your work clothes on helped you get into a work frame of mind. Stick to your routine as much as possible. And what was the other one, Nikki? It was routine. It's gone. But yeah, there's been a couple of same each week, the same sort of concept. Oh, I suppose it was the isolation. That was one of them. People are feeling quite isolated.
Yeah,
I'm sure
the connection bit, and I think just picking up what we were saying before about there is still a place for us meeting in person, because that nature, that ability to be perhaps more tactile, or just feel a sense of connection, the energetic connection, whilst we can make that over the phone and online, obviously it is sometimes easier to tune into the energy of when you're actually physically with somebody. So I think the face-to-face will still have its place with some clients, but thinking about that connection and the online meeting after meeting on Zoom, I do get a bit fatigued by the end of the day of being on Zoom meetings, back-to-back Zoom meetings. This is my 4th Zoom meeting of the day here, and I know I have 2 more today. So I do try and schedule 1 day a week. For me, usually it's Saturday, but I try and have 1 day a week where I have nothing on Zoom. So I just get a bit of a break from that sense of everything's on screen. Because apart from anything else, it's quite tiring to be online on show the whole time, because obviously on a Zoom meeting you are on show the whole time. If you're physically in a meeting, you can kind of sit back and just listen and not worry about it.
Can I address that for a minute? Because
please do.
I think it's really difficult to do a talk or a presentation without getting any feedback. And I know I've done talks now 4 times, and if I make a joke, or I can't get any response to see if it's falling flat or whatever, or just to get feedback about, like if I ask people to raise their hands and how many of you are in isolation, how many of you have kids running around, I can't, some of the technology doesn't allow for polls, so I don't get any energy back from the audience, because usually there's no audience on the screen. So I think that's really makes it much more difficult being a presenter than just being a participant who's scrolling on your iPhone while you're listening in the background with the video off and the sound off. I also tell people on a slightly different topic, I think we need to lower our expectations right now. I say this as a coach and having been on a number of calls with other master coaches. I think that we thought, well, we're in isolation and now I'm going to learn French, organize all my files, lose 10 pounds, do yoga every day, take an online course, and keep my business running. And I think that it's really hard to do it all, especially with, at least at the beginning, with the level of anxiety that we're all feeling. I think now I'm at least in the new normal phase. I'm not sure what it looks like, but it feels like, oh, I'm kind of settling in. And also, this life isn't all that different from my normal life, because I do work at home and my partner's here all the time, and but we can go out, you know, and I can get my hair cut, which is, I think, the biggest deprivation right now, probably, which means I really shouldn't complain. But I think that we have to lower our expectation of how much we think we can accomplish during this time, so that if we don't get it all done, it's okay. You know, we're human, and we're going through this worldwide crisis, which is affecting everybody. And I think people who are healthy and have home offices and have businesses that they can go to and have friends and family who love them, I mean, what a blessing. Gratitude. That's what I talk about in my book. You know, having gratitude is one of the keys to success. Thank you. Thank you, Dawn. Yeah.
I held it up earlier, but I think my video flicked off at that time. So I was probably doing it to myself. I think you're right about the gratitude. It's really important. And as coaches, we tend to be quite high performance and results orientated, don't we? So it is about lowering expectations and being kind to yourself.
As
well as
having compassion for yourself as much as for anybody else. Yeah. I also think celebrating the small wins. This book is for managers and team leaders, and it has coaching techniques and powerful questions and coaching tips. It's not a coaching training manual, but a lot of managers are terrific coaches, like my co-author, Ken Tutunjan, is the manager of one of the top real estate offices in the country, and he's an incredibly empathic, knowledgeable person, and I wrote the coaching tips, you know, based on what feedback we've gotten from people doing the book, and things like celebrating success, so important. You know, you make a list of 10 things you said you were going to do, and you get 7 of them done, and, like, you know, that's fantastic. Or you had a great call with somebody, or you planted your garden. I think we have to really just acknowledge the small successes, and it creates momentum to move forward toward larger successes.
I just think, just while waiting for some questions to come through, we've got a lovely point from Ellis saying to answer Jerri. She's in lockdown and catching up on research that she was finding it not easy to fit in when working previously. So she's making use of the lockdown time to do some research. Not yet started the coaching business, so Alice is very much at that initial startup phase. So hopefully this time will allow her to really prepare for launching that. So that's great point, Alice, that you're using the time wisely to get the foundations in place and to research and investigate. So that sounds like a really good use of your time. There was something else that came to me, just picking up on your what was the greatest challenge point. If I think back to how my clients reacted sort of 6 weeks or so ago, there was a real difference between the ones who've been with me for, well, most of the ones who've been with me for a while, they fell into 2 groups. There were some that had a sort of immediate panic and just sort of said, stop everything, and then gradually worked out how they were going to handle it and stop everything in their businesses. And there were others who said, you know what, I can't get through this without coaching. And they saw that the coaching was the absolute sort of bedrock of their sanity or their clear thinking, just to give them that space where they could talk things through, and particularly if in lockdown with family, the nearest person to talk to might be your husband or wife or partner or whatever, and you don't necessarily want to worry other people in the household. So who do you talk to about how is this impacting life, business, career, and so on? So to give them the coaching space, somewhere private, somewhere to come and talk to, where they can work things through without worrying other people in the household. I've had a couple of comments where people have said that it's been so valuable, where they thought maybe, shall we pause the coaching and come back to it? They've said they're so glad they didn't, because it's been so valuable to help them through just working through all the emotional stuff that's coming up and thinking about the changes that they've got to put in place. So it's been really interesting just watching the 2 different sort of reactions as to the sort of the approach they're taking, and it reflects how they approach everything in life. That phrase that says how we do something is how we do everything has been very true. But I think what we've seen is people sort of operating a lot more in their stress profile, and those who sort of look at personality profiles and types and so on. I think we're seeing more of people's stress sort of indicators coming to the surface at the moment than we might normally have seen.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
Angie
beautiful.
of England, so she's very new to all of this, so she's really loving that. I mean, this is only the second call of the ICW series, but she said she started her coaching diploma a week ago, and she wished she had a crystal ball to know how people are going to want to work in the future. But this is a great opportunity for her to be on Zoom, learn about everything, read about everything, soak up everything, and visualize the sort of business that she wants to have and how it's going to shape up. So that's a good comment, Angie, because you're on the Zoom call with a couple of old hands in the nicest possible way who've seen a lot. And as I said at the start, I'm sure Jerri didn't envisage anything like this. But you know, this week being so important to connect when you started out with International Coaching Week.
Just add a word of encouragement just to Angie and to Alice, who are just getting started, just as a word of encouragement. My business, Wild Empowerment, is 11 years old. I started Wild Empowerment in the global depression recession of 2008, 7-8, when everything was, if we're saying the same things then, oh, how long is this going to last? How are we going to cope? The whole world's grinding to all of those sorts of phrases that I'm hearing or hearing in the news and the economic press at the moment. I've heard it all before, and it's when I started my business. I'm still here 11 years later. So I just wanted to give that word of encouragement that it is possible to start a successful coaching business in a recession. So definitely do it.
Anytime, anywhere, because as you said, Jerri, it will pass.
Yeah.
Bad stage.
This is temporary, but actually the people are talking about new normal. I use the phrase next normal because they've always changed. Things always change. There's always going to be something will come along that will change things again. So I just talk about the next normal. We're going to have another normal, and then something will change. We'll have another normal and another one.
Well, I think that's so true. And I think a really great question that I ask people at the end of my talks are two questions. One is, what are you learning about yourself from this period? And another one is, how are you going to do your business differently or your life differently once, you know, we get out of lockdown? Because I think that especially people in the financial sector, at least in the US, after 9/11, a lot of people in the financial services quit and went into the creative arts. And I know a lot of people are bringing out the creative side of themselves while they're stuck in quarantine. And I think a number of people who are valuing materialism much more than maybe they ought to have been are going to be moving into much more creative or helping professions as opposed to whatever they were doing before. And maybe there'll become more people will move into coaching, which is certainly very creative and about giving back.
Yeah. I was just reading Sandra's comment, which is beautiful, on the giving back. She's getting established in San Diego. So I think you know Sandra, Jerri.
Hi, Sandy.
So Sandy's saying that as she gets, because she's got the connections through the medical profession through her son, who's an ER doctor, so she's offering coaching sessions to healthcare workers this week. So it's her way of giving back. And I know in the UK we're talking about the support for all the frontline care workers here. So offering something, if they're too busy at the moment, that's one of the things I just wanted to mention on, because in International Coaching Week there's a real spotlight on coaching, and I'm seeing lots of people giving access to things during International Coaching Week, and that's great. At the same time, there's so much going on this week that it's kind of, there's too much, you can't take advantage of everything. So one of the things that I'm saying to my contacts is, during International Coaching Week, I'm giving you a voucher, so you can come and use that sometime in the next two months, say. So whilst at the moment they're really busy, maybe they haven't got the time at the moment to take advantage of that, but actually they know they would benefit from it when they get a lull or they get a few days rest. Then I'm giving them, they can have the voucher during this week, and then they can use it anytime in the next couple of months when they want, when the time's better for them. So that's, but I just wanted to mention that giving back fits so beautifully with the philosophy for International Coaching Week of supporting the community and giving something extra.
It's a lovely idea, and it's a good point, Nikki, that everything is happening and we can actually spread it, the love and the time and the space to enjoy and benefit from coaching at a later date. It doesn't have to be now, particularly when people have got time to reflect and have come out of the stress that they're under at the moment.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think sometimes people are so worried that they just cannot think clearly, and and there's no amount of us saying, "Oh, come and have a coaching session; it'll all be fine." That goes back. That feels insensitive. Go back to Jerri's point earlier about being sensitive and acknowledging what's going on for them. So if it feels like they've got to use it now, use it or lose it now, but they just can't face thinking forwards at the moment, then to make it okay. So okay, I get it right now. There's too much going on. You've got too much going on in your world, in your head at the moment. So come back to me at the end of the month, or come back to me in a couple of weeks' time, and then you'll have more information, or you'll have different perspective on things. You'll know things then that you don't know today. So let's pick up in a week or two. Sometimes that can just take the pressure off them having to make a decision right now to go and get the thing.
Yeah.
I was on another call with a group of coaches, a marketing call with a group of coaches recently, and they were talking, there was going back to our false beliefs and myths, and the belief was that the people in the care professions are too busy with their shifts and their work and so on, and therefore don't want any coaching right now. And there was somebody else on the call who specializes in that, working with that group of clients anyway, and who's saying actually she's busier than ever, because even though a lot of them are the caring professionals are working long hours and are feeling the pressure and the demands, they're still valuing having that time with their coach to just get a different perspective, maybe put things back in perspective if things have got a bit sort of out of alignment in their thinking and their sort of view of the world. So I think one of the questions to each of us as coaches is just ask the question, what do you believe about today? What do you believe is true about the current situation we're in, and how much of that belief is just based on what you're seeing around you, or input you've had from well-meaning friends or family or colleagues or contacts, and how much of your perspective on the current situation is true, as opposed to a lens that you're looking at through either the distortions of other opinions or sort of misinformation. And so just challenge it. I think just for all of us, I'm speaking to myself here as much as anything, it's just recognize, what do we believe about what's going on at the moment, and is that helping us or hindering us?
Any coaching is welcome, Nikki. Thank you. Little impromptu coaching session there. Thank you. So as we start to wrap up, unless anybody has any other questions, particularly for Jerri, while we've got her undivided attention in this busy week, what tips, if any, would you like to leave us with, Jerri, in between now and perhaps when we speak to you again in another year or two, and we've come through this and created the next normal?
Okay, great question. One, limit your consumption of the news. Just limit it, because it just raises your stress level, and there really isn't that much new going on that we need to know about. Two, practice random acts of kindness. You know, I send cards to people, I try to call people, I dropped off hand sanitizer to my neighbors. Just do things that make you feel good, that make other people feel good. And think about coaching in terms of what you can give, and not to do coaching in order to get clients, not to do pro bono or complimentary or tasting sessions in order to get anything, but just do it in the spirit of generosity. That's my parting thought, you know. And this is Coaching Week. I mean, it's so moving to me because it's gotten way beyond anything that I had ever imagined, and so I just don't. You know, I'd like to be associated with it, but it was meant to be, and I was kind of the vehicle to bring it forth. So I'm like the midwife, and so what, you know, at least it's here. So I think that this is a great opportunity, though, to really bring your heart out and your kindness and your generosity and all the training and wisdom and experience that we have, and to just bring it out into the universe and just support people who are going through really challenging times. And so thank you for this opportunity. It was just terrific. Thank you.
You're very welcome. We're just hearing from a couple of people on the line that they've had notes from you. So they're just verifying you really do this. And I think it's a great tip, because when we're trying to connect, particularly in this time of isolation, going back to old-fashioned methods like pad and pen and sending cards is a really lovely way to remind people that you're available and you're in their lives and you're here to support them. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your time and interest. A lot of people on the call saying thank you. So I'll leave you all to enjoy the rest of your day. Any questions, you can always come back to us by email or the contact page. And Jerri, how can people find you and buy your lovely book, which in fact I've read this one and I think you signed it for me, so I'll be auctioning this off for charity later in the year once our book club has formally reviewed it. But how can people find you and a bit more about what you do?
Oh, great. They can go on jerriu.com, and my email is attached to the website, jerriu@gmail.com. And I have a number of different websites. And also join the pandemic. If you're on Facebook, join the Pandemic Dining Facebook group, because it's just fun. It's no pressure. You don't have to post anything, but it's just kind of cool. But just email me and I'm happy to get back to you. I also am doing sessions for people throughout the pandemic, not just for coaching weeks. So I'm happy to talk to you if you want.
Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. Stay safe, enjoy your coaching, and more importantly, keep finding creative ways to connect with each other. Pays dividends. Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.